other day, my 9-year-old comes to me and she says, "Mom, I think I want to be called they, them from now on." And I'm not gonna lie, I was very surprised and completely caught off guard. And I said, "Okay, if that's what you want, but do you want to talk about it a little bit?" And she said, "No, not right now, but we'll talk about it soon." I was like, "Okay." And not more than an hour, maybe 2 hours later, she comes back to me and she says, "Mom, I don't think I'm a they, them. I think I'm a she, her. And, I want to go back to that." And I said, "Okay, that's fine, but I think we should talk about it now." And she said, "We were talking about gender identity at school. And I know that one of my friends is a they, them, but they're the only one. And I'm worried about them because that's probably really scary and lonely. So I thought if I was a they, them, they wouldn't feel so alone. But I know that's not who I am, so I don't want to change that about me, just like they don't want to change for anybody else." So to me, when we teach our kids about our differences in race and gender identity and sexuality and religion and everything, we're not teaching them to change themselves. We're not teaching them that, how to become these things. We're just teaching them how to be empathetic towards the people that are. And we're trying to teach them how to offer support in whatever ways we can for those who feel marginalized. It's not that hard.
I've had a number of guys question my motives about why it is I want to talk about rape culture. Well, who should be talking about rape culture? The rapists? Number one, that's insane and disgusting. Number two, I might be willing to listen to a rapist if he spoke in a falsetto. Should we be listening to the men who say, "I will not believe women, even if they're my friends, if they don't come to me with proof"? I would rather those people lost all their friends, never talked to anyone again, and died many, many years from now, sad and alone, wondering how their lives went so wrong. Should we be hearing from survivors? They did not choose this trauma. It is not their defining feature. Let them live their own lives. How about women who haven't been sexually assaulted? Why should we be asking them to raise their heads only to become targets? Who's left? Men who recognize the dangers of this male-centered rape culture. We are the problem. To some degree, we're victims. And to a larger degree, we're the solution. And that's why I want to talk about rape culture.
Let's talk victim blaming. So victim blaming occurs when the victim of a crime or wrongful act is held partially responsible for the crime committed against them. This is commonly used against victims of sexual assault, but I've been noticing it used a lot lately against victims of police brutality. So let's talk about that. There's actually a psychological reason behind why we victim blame. Say a young woman is assaulted at a bar, and I sit here and say, well, her skirt was too short, she shouldn't have been drinking so much, she shouldn't have been out so late by herself. What I'm doing is I'm distancing myself from the victim and the situation. I'm saying, well, I wouldn't have made those mistakes, so it can't happen to me, right? It's the exact same with victims of police brutality. You're putting the victim in the wrong to make yourself feel better. Well, if he had only just complied, he shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place. He probably looked suspicious. Let me just say that saying that a black man looks suspicious because he was in a hoodie is the exact same thing as saying that a girl was asking for it because she was in a short skirt.
And another thing with this case too, Slender, before we put it to rest, is that he is fighting in this comment section of her video, J Soup's video, and then he has the audacity to say, but let's talk about the woman of color that doesn't get the opportunities that she gets. Huh? The deeper issue about still too many women of color not getting opportunities even though they're far better actors. Like, when did we pivot? And of course, J Soups, as always, has handled this very well, and it was manipulative and disingenuous for him to bring that up. And the final nail in the coffin right here is that if you want to discuss the very important issue of better representation for women of color in Hollywood, you can take that without making stale, misogynistic takes. Boom. As a woman of color right here, in this space you're in, you're not just a person of color, but you're also a man who's criticizing a female actress for the very reasons that male actors get praised for. To reiterate, if you want to talk about women of color and the lack of representation opportunities that they have in Hollywood, let's do that. But don't bring it up when you think it's convenient for you.
So TERFs and conservatives take the same side when it comes to the debate surrounding trans people's use of public restrooms. Both sides assert that trans people should only be able to use the bathrooms that correlate with their assigned sex at birth, rather than their current gender identity. TERFs will try to frame this as an attempt to protect women and children from predatory men. and there are a lot of things wrong with that justification, but in this video, I want to specifically talk about how this transphobic crusade continues a long history of weaponizing public restrooms as a form of social control. One of the ways in which you can limit how people move about in public spaces is by limiting their access to public restrooms. If you're at work, school, a restaurant, or a store, your time spent there is severely limited if you don't have access to a toilet. This can sometimes mean the inability to access certain places altogether. So the policing of who gets to use public toilets can be used as a method of oppression, and it certainly has been used as such against groups across history. For example, in the 20th century, white segregationists opposed racially integrated bathrooms over claims that it would allow black men sexual access to white women. And in the 1950s, public officials painted gay men as predators seeking to harm children who entered public restrooms. We can certainly see how these sentiments are mirrored today in the way that TERFs paint trans women as threats to children and cis women. And the policing of public restrooms continues today in the way that we control the movement of the homeless, through bathrooms are for paying customer only rules and the general lack of public facilities. And people with disabilities are also effectively limited in their public outings through poorly designed or overall inaccessible stalls and toilets. And they would also be affected by legislation that strictly segregates bathrooms by sex. Many people with disabilities need assistance when using the restroom, which might require that they or their helper use a bathroom of the opposite sex. Not to mention that the reason that we have sex-segregated bathrooms in the first place is due to Victorian-style values of modesty, and the idea that women, who were usually relegated to the home, needed to be protected from the harsh realities of the public sphere. So TERFs and conservatives are not treading new ground here with their moral panic against trans people using public restrooms. Their desire to protect women and children is a farce. What they really want to say is that they don't want to exist in a public society alongside trans people.
I heard this really lovely audio recently, and they basically said something along the lines of, it's cool to not go viral because then you can build your community one follower at a time, and then you know you've built a community of people who truly fuck with you. And that's what I've been trying to do for the last 9 months that I've been here, until about 2 weeks ago when I hopped on a trend. I talked about my job, and I gained about 7,000 more followers who I'm not convinced took a scroll through my page before following me. So I want to take a moment and reintroduce myself and give you guys a chance to either stick around or respectfully part ways. I don't want to mess up your FYP on accident. So hi, I'm Nick, I'm 32 years old, and my favorite color is yellow. I think we should make America great again, but I also think America was only great between these specific dates. I am a Sagittarius sun, a Libra moon, and an Aries rising. I think critical race theory should be taught starting in the womb. Fun fact about me, I actually have the opposite of claustrophobia, so I am terrified of the sky. Trans women are women. So I was actually 5 feet tall until my 30s, and now I'm 5'1", and I have no idea what happened. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism. Sometimes I like to light candles and just say shit to them just to see what happens. I'm not fully convinced that I ever developed a full understanding of object permanence. I think it would have been objectively cooler if the billionaires had just stayed in space. I do live in Michigan with my partner of many years and our 5 furry roommates. No kids. I am fully vaxxed and boosted, and I will continue as many boosters needed. My favorite genre of both movies and books is horror, which I have been told could possibly be a trauma response, which explains a lot. Yes, all men is shorthand for the systemic societal and economic strife caused by patriarchy, which is born from, raised, and continues to thrive on the complacency of all white women. My toxic trait is thinking that I like oatmeal because of a pretty picture on Pinterest, despite actively hating oatmeal. I am not pro-choice, I am pro-abortion, and on that note, reminder, reproductive rights are directly tied to systemic racism, classism, and eugenics. My favorite show is Adventure Time. While I don't believe in a white male Christian God, I am currently reading the Bible for fun. I am a big fan of historical fiction, and I'm really looking forward to the Jesus storyline. I think he seems like kind of a cool guy. I am absolutely terrified of dolphins.
Bands just to pull up for the walkthrough. You a broke bitch, kill yourself, let it haunt you. He's talking.
These girls that weren't even my friends, they jumped in front of me and fought a group of boys to save me. And they were outnumbered. I was 11 years old, Florida middle school. I got surrounded by 10 boys during lunch one day. I used to get bullied every lunch because I didn't know how to speak English and because I was the weird kid or whatever. And I'm like, I just want to go to lunch, whatever. We started fighting, blah, blah, blah. I want to scream for help, but I don't know who. And there was no one around, right? And then out of nowhere, these 5 girls freaking just jumped in front of me and said, touch him one more time, just freaking do it. And these boys would not back off, and they fought. I watched these 5 girls fight with like 10 boys to protect me, someone that they did not even know and didn't need to do any of this for. Until this day, I will forever respect women and all the freaking amazing things that they do, because they don't even have to know somebody to just try to do what's right. And I fucking love that.
Mr. Old Kanye, straight from the gold Kanye, chop up the soul Kanye, set on his goals Kanye. I hate the new Kanye, the bad mood Kanye, the always rude Kanye, spaz in the new.
How to find out if you're a toxic, creepy man? We shouldn't be feeling unsafe while walking on the street. Just leave us alone.
Normative male allies and men who say not all men are motivated by the same things: the need for female attention and the need to validate for themselves that they're in fact good men. And to me, performative male allies are a lot more scary, and here's why. For a man to show up as an ally to women's liberation movement, he needs to be fully committed to introspection. Because once a man realizes that he has been part of the oppressing group, he will turn inward to unlearn all the ways in which he has been contributing to the perpetration of harm and oppression, both willingly and unknowingly. But the psychological barriers for the performative male allies to get to the introspection are a lot higher than they are for the men who say not all men. Because for the PMA, they have successfully distanced themselves from those other men. And they're also acquiring positive reinforcement from women for doing the bare minimum. We'll just make a post that says we shouldn't mistreat women. And then the comment section blows up with, he gets it. Genuine male allies are committed to introspection and to using his social power to amplify women and non-binary voices.